Hello everyone, today we are bringing you RedHat, a detailed explanation of the exam questions for the System Administrator certification. In the last class, we already set up the environment. After setting up the environment, if you have the capability, it's best to take a snapshot to facilitate future rollbacks. With the snapshot, we can start practicing immediately. If you don't have it, that's okay too. After each session, you can just restore the environment once. Next, let's take a closer look at one of our topics. For the beginner certification exam questions, first of all, you need to note that the beginner certification involves 2 virtual machines. Once we open the physical machine, we can see 2 virtual machines, and we will be working with these 2 virtual machines later on. What should you pay attention to? Pay attention to the requirements in the questions, which will tell you the specific operations. Whether it's node 1 or node 2 is very important. If you make a mistake, you won't get any points. So be careful. Of course, most operations are on node 1. We start the first question on node 1. The first configuration, task, is to set up the network. Of course, this is actually divided into 2 parts. One is the hostname, and the other is the network. We need to configure both. First, let's take a look at the question. The question requires us to use the command line to configure a static network. Configure a static network. Of course, there are actually many ways to configure this. For this and subsequent questions, as long as you meet the requirements of the question, it's fine. You don't necessarily have to use the solution provided in the question. However, the solution we provide is the most stable and secure. If you use other methods, it might lead to some errors and result in not getting any points. So it's best to follow the methods in the question bank. Of course, if you want to use other methods, as long as you meet the requirements of the question, that's fine. Here, our question requires 2 things. First, configure our host name. Second, configure our IP address, subnet mask, gateway or default route, and DNS. Here, you need to pay attention. When configuring these settings, including all subsequent questions, there is a common feature, which is our final scoring is done after restarting. All virtual machines are scored after restarting. Therefore, for many services, especially those involving a lot of service software, you must ensure they are set to start automatically on boot. This also applies to our network configuration. It needs to start automatically on boot as well, so please pay attention. It's not that network configuration doesn't need to start automatically. Our network card also needs to start automatically. So be aware, if you don't set it to start automatically, this question, sorry, you won't get any points. Of course, the hostname doesn't affect it. You can still score points for the hostname. Please note that each question is not scored as a whole. It is based on the requirements of the question. If you complete part of the requirements, you will receive partial points. So for this question, we have 2 requirements, which actually means 2 scores. If your host name is correct, you get that part of the score. If your IP is correct, that's the other half. Only if both are correct will you get the full score for this question. So here, first, let's look at the host name. For the main interface settings, you must set it to a permanent host name. There are many ways to change the host name. Some are temporary changes, and some are permanent. I mentioned earlier that after we finish with our virtual machines, they will all be restarted. Once you restart, if you made a temporary change, you won't get the points. So what do we need? Well, we need permanent. Okay, here we will take a look at a method for making permanent changes. This is still the environment from our last class. Configuration. So here we will first clear the screen. Next, let's look at the first question. The command to change the hostname is hostname. For permanent settings, the command is indeed a bit longer. Please remember this slightly, because there are many ways to make changes, but many of them are actually temporary, which are not suitable for this question. If you want to set it permanently, just follow the method in our question bank, and that will work. Then, You just need to add your hostname according to the requirements of the question. Please note that in our question bank, the question types are generally the same as in the exam. What differs is that many of the parameters may change. It can't. It's impossible for your practice environment to be exactly the same as the exam. Otherwise, the exam would have no meaning. Here, many questions in our exams have different options. So you need to be flexible and adaptable. Don't just memorize the question bank. Please note that the question bank is only meant to provide you with a method to solve these types of questions, not for you to write exactly as it is in the question bank. If you do that, you definitely won't pass. Rest assured, you definitely won't pass. So here everyone must pay attention to the requirements within the question bank questions. Just write the topic name in the question, exactly as it is. Even if you're afraid of writing it wrong, can you copy it? Yes, you can. You can directly copy from the question bank into your command line. That's fine. 2. Please pay attention to this. Here, first, let's write down the topic name from the question. Everyone mainly needs to remember the command at the beginning. You don't need to remember the main sentence name at the end. Even if you don't write it this way, it's fine, as long as it's in a practice environment. Just focus on remembering how to write our command and the format. That's all you need to pay attention to. Okay, here, can we press enter first? We can't press enter. Why can't we press enter? Because we are actually not on node 1 right now. Everyone should pay attention to this. Everyone, please don't say, hey, after you open the environment or during the exam, immediately start typing after booting up. That's wrong. Why? Because we mentioned earlier we have 2. There are 2 virtual machines, so what we need here needs to be connected to the virtual machines before we can start doing it. Okay, let's connect to the virtual machine here, shall we? How do we connect to the virtual machine? The name of our virtual machine is... Here, during the last class when we started the environment, you all saw it, right? There's one called server A and one called server B. These 2 are our virtual machines. So here we need to first remotely connect to server A. We've already set up passwordless access in advance, so you don't need to do anything, just enter. Okay, once you're in, we start writing the topic name. This time it's really an important part of the exam is that everyone must pay attention to something. You must ensure that you enter our virtual machine before starting the experiment. This is something you must be careful about. If you're not in the virtual machine and start the experiment directly, you won't get any points. You won't get any points. It's just a waste of effort. Another point to note is that in the exam, there is an initial snapshot. So if you encounter any issues at any step, or if the virtual machine freezes or any unexpected situation occurs, you can communicate with the examiner, or you can directly restore the snapshot. All right, the first thing is to change the host name if it hasn't changed, right? If it hasn't changed, it's okay, it will change. Just refresh it, and it will be fine. And next is the IP. Here you can use it. Edit, hours. Configuration files can also be used with commands. Here, it's recommended to use commands because, relatively speaking, it will be a bit simpler. Here, let's first take a look at what network cards we have. Actually, there's usually only one. Make sure to check who ET0 is, and then, because of the name in front, you can edit it. Alright, here, let's directly edit. Here, you can directly copy the name if you're afraid of making a mistake. Of course, if you do make a mistake, the command will report an error, but that's okay. Alright, copy it. Next is a method of editing. We use static, and here we need to configure a static IP. You must configure a static IP. Then the next step is the IP address. As for the IP address, it is specified in the problem. It's 1. 72.25. 250.100. Just follow the problem's instructions when configuring. When practicing, follow the question bank because this IP address is related to some of the later questions. So you can't just configure it randomly. So for this part, just configure the IP according to the question bank. And of course, during the exam, configure it according to the exam instructions. Be sure to check carefully. If you make a mistake. If you write the IP incorrectly, what will happen? It will lead to some subsequent issues. It will cause some problems later on. So here, first of all, we write the IP address and subnet mask together, and then the next is the gateway. As for the gateway, I see in the question, it's 254. The next one is DNS, which also needs to be specified. However, here, because we are in a purely internal network environment and cannot connect to the internet, our DNS here is actually the same. As the gateway, it's the same. Okay, the next step is our auto start on boot, which is the most important step. If you don't do this step, the previous steps are essentially meaningless. Just auto start. Yes. Okay, this is our IP address configuration. After configuring, we press enter. If you encounter an error here, it's okay. If you encounter errors while doing the task, it's actually a good thing. A good thing. Why is it a good thing? At least, you have the opportunity to check for errors. If you encounter some commands, after executing them, they might fail, but without giving you any prompt. This is the most frightening. The most frightening. So after completing each task, you must check carefully, because during the exam, you are not provided with a method for immediate checking. You can only verify it yourself using some commands. Finally, when you submit, it won't check for you either. You just submit and leave. And generally, within 1 to 3 business days, you will receive a message about whether you passed. If there are some disputes, it might take 4 to 5 days. Generally, if it takes 4 to 5 days and you feel you did well on the test, it usually means you might have scored full marks. In my case. Well, many of our classmates, as long as they encounter a situation where the results take 4 to 5 days to come out, basically get full marks, because full marks can't be given easily, right? It has to go through several screenings before full marks can be awarded. Generally after 4 to 5 days, as long as you are quite confident, it will definitely be full marks. Usually it's full marks. Of course, we can pass with 210 points. Passing requires 70%. If everyone finds that time is quite tight, there's no need to insist on pursuing full marks. Reaching 210 points is actually sufficient, but everyone should strive to do their best on each question. This is mainly to prevent any accidental mistakes, like writing the wrong parameters. Such unexpected situations can happen. So here, everyone, pay attention and check carefully, okay? So, what's the next step? Let's start. The network card is fine. It's the same as before. If the name is too long, you can still copy it directly. It's not a problem. Okay, let's start the network card. Once the network card is started, what can we do? How do we check it? You can use a command to check. The host name has already changed, so there's no need to check that. You can see it in real time. We mainly look at the IP. You see, now I'm stuck. Why is that? Because we changed the IP, right? When you change the IP, it will definitely get stuck. That's normal. Now let's go back to the virtual machine. How do we verify it? Use our remote connection. What was the IP address you just changed? 172 points. Let me check. 172.25.150.100. This is the one we just set. The IP, right? Okay, press enter. It says unreachable. Which one were we just on? We were on server A, right? Join A. Server A cannot be connected. Why? because server A was the previous hostname, and now our hostname is called node 1. As for the IP, the one above didn't seem to respond just now. Let me check here. Let's try connecting remotely. Oh, this is my IP here. I wrote it wrong. Okay, it's connected now. Everyone can see what our IP is, right? Is this one? No problem, right? The hostname is also correct. Okay, this is our first question. As long as you can connect normally, it means the first step you did is correct, so there's no problem. Wait. All right, this is one solution to our first question. If you need the complete question bank, please leave a comment below, and you can purchase the most stable question bank at the best price. That's it for today, everyone. Goodbye.